Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm taking you on a breathtaking drive through Zion National Park, one of the most stunning natural wonders in the United States. As we cruise through these towering cliffs and winding roads, I'll be sharing the fascinating history of Zion, how it was formed, the people who called it home, and how it became the iconic national park we know today. So buckle up, sit back, and let's dive into the story of Zion National Park. Let's start at the very beginning, over 250 million years ago. Imagine this place wasn't towering cliffs and canyons back then. It was actually part of a vast, ancient desert, filled with massive sand dunes. Over millions of years, layers upon layers of sand were compressed into rock, forming what's now known as the Navajo sandstone, the signature rock you see all around us. But the real magic happened when powerful geological forces began to shape the landscape. The region experienced a dramatic uplift, known as the Colorado Plateau uplift. This raised the land thousands of feet, giving rivers like the Virgin River a steep downhill path. The river cut deep into the rock over millions of years, carving out Zion Canyon as we see it today. Just think about that. What we're driving through is the result of water's slow, persistent power, sculpting stone over eons. Now, let's fast forward to the first humans who made Zion their home. Archaeological evidence shows that people lived in this region as far back as 8,000 years ago. The earliest known inhabitants were hunter-gatherers, part of the archaic culture, who roamed these canyons in search of food and resources. Later, the ancestral Puebloans and the Fremont people settled here. They farmed the fertile land along the Virgin River, growing crops like corn, beans, and squash. You can still find remnants of their presence, petroglyphs etched into the canyon walls and ancient dwellings tucked into cliff faces. Eventually, the southern Paiute people arrived around 800 years ago. They lived here for generations, deeply connected to the land, with rich traditions and a spiritual relationship with the natural world. To the Paiute, Zion wasn't just a canyon, it was sacred. In the mid-1800s, Mormon pioneers arrived, seeking new territory where they could practice their faith freely. One of the early Mormon settlers, Nephi Johnson, was guided into the canyon by southern Paiute people in the 1850s. The Mormons were so inspired by the towering cliffs and majestic scenery that they named the area Zion, a biblical term meaning a place of refuge or sanctuary. They believed they had found a piece of heaven on earth. The settlers established small communities, farming the land, and even attempting to build irrigation systems. Life here was tough. Flash floods, harsh conditions, and isolation made survival a constant challenge. But despite the hardships, they left their mark on the land. Now let's talk about how Zion transformed from a remote settlement to a world-famous national park. By the early 1900s, word had spread about Zion's incredible beauty. Artists, photographers, and explorers began visiting, capturing its dramatic cliffs, slot canyons, and vibrant colors. Their work inspired conservationists to protect the area. In 1909, President William Howard Taft declared the area a national monument, calling it Mukuntuweap National Monument, which was believed to be the original Paiute name for the region. However, that name didn't stick for long. In 1919, it was renamed Zion National Park, a name that was easier to pronounce and carried that powerful spiritual meaning. The creation of Zion National Park marked a turning point. Roads, tunnels, and trails were built to make the park accessible to visitors. One of the most famous projects was the Zion Mount Carmel Tunnel, completed in 1930, which we might be driving through soon. It's over a mile long and carved right through the solid rock. Today, Zion National Park welcomes over 4 million visitors every year. People come from all over the world to hike iconic trails like Angel's Landing and the Narrows, to rock climb the massive sandstone walls, or just to soak in the scenery from drives like this one. Zion isn't just about the rocks and views, though. It's also a thriving ecosystem. The park is home to over 1,000 plant species, 78 species of mammals, nearly 300 species of birds, and countless reptiles and amphibians. As you look around, you might spot mule deer, bighorn sheep, or even a California condor soaring overhead. Since we've covered the basics of ZIONS history, from its ancient geological origins to its designation as a national park, let's dive deeper. There's so much more to this place than just stunning views. The hidden stories of its people, wildlife, natural forces, and even some legends make Zion even more fascinating. So, let's keep rolling and uncover more about this incredible park. Earlier, I mentioned that the name Zion comes from a biblical term meaning a place of refuge, or sanctuary. But there's more to the story. For the Mormon settlers, naming this place Zion wasn't just about its beauty, it was symbolic. They believed Zion represented a spiritual homeland, a promised land where they could live in harmony with their faith. Interestingly, the name wasn't without controversy. When the area was first declared a national monument, it was called Mukuntuweap, a name believed to be derived from the southern Paiute language. Some say it meant straight canyon or place of straight cliffs, which perfectly describes the towering walls around us. However, early park promoters thought the name was hard to pronounce and less appealing to tourists, so they pushed to change it to Zion, a name that was both catchy and spiritually resonant. While Zion's main canyon gets most of the attention, there are countless hidden gems throughout the park. Places like Kolob Canyons, located in the northwest section, offer breathtaking red rock formations and fewer crowds. The name Kolob also has a biblical origin, referring to a star or heavenly body in Mormon cosmology. The early settlers often used religious names to describe the awe they felt in these landscapes. Another less-known spot is the Subway, a tubular canyon that looks like, you guessed it, a subway tunnel carved by water. It's a challenging hike requiring route finding, rappelling, and swimming through cold pools, but it's one of Zion's most surreal and beautiful formations. Then there's Hidden Canyon, tucked away near Angel's Landing. It's a narrow slot canyon filled with hanging gardens and rock scrambles. These quieter places remind us that Zion isn't just about the famous landmarks. It's a maze of canyons and cliffs, with surprises around every corner. Let's talk about how Zion became the park we know today. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. This program put thousands of young men to work on public projects, including national parks. Here in Zion, the CCC played a huge role. They built roads, trails, campgrounds, and many of the stone structures you see today. They even worked on the Zion Mount Carmel Tunnel, which was an engineering marvel at the time. Imagine carving a tunnel over a mile long through solid sandstone using 1930s technology. The CCC's work made Zion accessible to more visitors, helping transform it from a remote wilderness into one of America's most beloved parks. Their craftsmanship still stands today, blending seamlessly with the natural environment. The Zion Mount Carmel Tunnel, 3 minutes. Speaking of the Zion Mount Carmel Tunnel, if we haven't driven through it yet, get ready. This tunnel is over 1.1 miles long and was completed in 1930. At the time, it was the longest tunnel of its kind in the U.S. The goal was to connect Zion with Bryce Canyon and the Grand Canyon, making it easier for tourists to explore the Southwest. The tunnel has windows carved into the rock, not for people to look out, but to provide ventilation and light during construction. Today, they offer brief, jaw-dropping glimpses of the cliffs outside. Driving through the tunnel feels like entering another world as you emerge from darkness into blinding, sunlit canyons. Zion isn't just a geological wonder, it's also teeming with life. The park's diverse ecosystems support a wide range of animals. You might spot desert bighorn sheep gracefully climbing the cliffs or mule deer grazing near the riverbanks. Zion is also home to over 290 species of birds, including the majestic California condor, which has a wingspan of nearly 10 feet. Seeing one soar above the cliffs is like watching a piece of prehistory in motion. They're considered the largest flying land birds in North America. Keep an eye out for smaller creatures too, like rock squirrels. Though be careful, they're notorious for trying to steal snacks. Zion also has reptiles like the collared lizard, which sports bright green and yellow colors, and the elusive Gila monster, a venomous lizard rarely seen in the wild. Flowing quietly beside us, or maybe roaring depending on the season, is the Virgin River, the unsung hero of Zion. Despite its modest size, this river carved the massive canyon over millions of years. It's what we call a young river geologically, meaning it still has steep gradients and strong erosive power. The Virgin River continues to shape Zion today. Flash floods can dramatically alter the landscape in just a few hours. That's part of the thrill and danger of hiking in places like the Narrows, where towering walls rise hundreds of feet above the river, and the only path is through the water itself. Zion's cliffs don't just hold geological history, they echo with stories and legends. The Southern Paiute people have rich oral traditions tied to this land. One story speaks of the Great Spirit creating the towering cliffs as a sanctuary for the people, protecting them from great floods. There's also the legend of Angel's Landing. Early settlers believed the towering rock formation was so high that only angels could land on it. Today, brave hikers tackle the narrow, spine-like trail to the summit, clinging to chains bolted into the rock. It's both exhilarating and terrifying, definitely not for the faint of heart. Zion's beauty can be deceiving. It's also a land of extremes. Summers can be brutally hot, with temperatures soaring over 100 degrees, while winters bring snow to the higher elevations. Flash floods are one of the park's biggest dangers. Even on a clear day, storms miles away can send walls of water rushing through the narrow canyons. This dramatic weather contributes to Zion's ever-changing landscape. Rockfalls, landslides, and erosion constantly reshape the park. In fact, parts of Zion's famous observation point trail have been closed due to rock slides in recent years. Zion faces modern challenges too. With over 4 million visitors a year, the park deals with overcrowding, trail erosion, and environmental strain. The shuttle system, introduced in 2000, was designed to reduce car traffic and protect the fragile ecosystem. It's been a huge success, helping preserve the park while still allowing people to experience its beauty. Conservation efforts are ongoing to ensure Zion remains a sanctuary for future generations. As we wrap up this journey, I hope you felt a deeper connection to Zion, not just as a scenic backdrop, but as a living, breathing landscape with stories carved into every rock layer. From ancient sand dunes to sacred Paiute land, from Mormon settlers to modern adventurers, Zion holds countless narratives woven into its cliffs and canyons. Every time I come here, I'm reminded of how small we are compared to the forces of nature and time. But I also feel incredibly lucky to witness this beauty, to stand where others have stood for thousands of years, all feeling that same sense of awe. Thanks for joining me on this ride through Zion National Park. If you enjoyed this deep dive into its history and hidden stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share your favorite Zion memories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and I'll see you on the next adventure.